Welcome to For the Long Run, the podcast exploring the why behind what keeps runners running long, strong, and motivated. I'm your host, Jonathan Levitt. Through personal and professional connections in the running world, I have the privilege of getting to know some amazing athletes. I've always been fascinated by the psychological aspect of running, and this podcast is aimed at exploring this and much more. I hope you enjoy. Welcome back. I have Kelsey Bruce joining me today. Kelsey, thanks for joining in.
Thank you for having me, Jonathan.
For sure. So you were a recommendation of one of the first, actually she was the first interview that I did on this podcast, Sarah Duffy. So thanks for jumping on to chat. And my first question is, who is Kelsey Bruce?
I am 27. I am an assistant coach at Dallas Baptist University and trying to pursue this running thing at the same time.
That's awesome. So what motivated you to go for your first run?
Oh gosh. My mom ran when I was growing up. She ran at Angelo State in college, and she continued to run after she had me. And I wanted to be like my mom. I used to make my dad let me out at the front gate. We lived on a ranch when I was little, and I used to make him let me out at the front gate and run to the house. We went back and measured it, and I've shared this story before, but it's about a mile, and I was 3. So I guess that was my first real run.
That's awesome. I was reading up on the Let's Run intro and I read that story, and I was like, oh, that's so cool that mile run was the first thing you did. So many kids growing up, myself included, I tried to get out of the mile run in middle school and high school and whatnot. And you're, out there as a 3-year-old doing a mile run as soon as you possibly could. So I think that's super cool.
I'm not a fan of the mile anymore, though.
That's why you do 26 of them, right?
Yeah. Not quick enough for one.
So, wow. So what does that progression look like from being a 3-year-old runner to a 27-year-old runner? What are the 24 years in between? What do those look like?
Yeah, so I did a couple 5Ks with my mom growing up. And then I think I did one track meet in 6th grade. Just remember it being really hot. There wasn't very many people on the track, but it was still really fun because I got to go do that with my mom. And then I did the Junior Olympics cross country and thought that was really cool until I realized almost everyone qualifies for that. But that was cool. That was about the extent of my experience until 6th grade. And then I ran in middle school, was a multi-sport athlete from middle school through high school, and then attended DBU. Love it, and still sticking around there.
Awesome. And now you're coaching, right?
Yes. Yeah. So I help with all the distance side. I do assistant for pretty much everything. And then I was just given direct coaching over the 800 meter group for women.
Very, very cool. I've had a couple 800 meter runners on here. Predominantly the guests on the podcast are trail and ultra runners. And I always find it fascinating to cut the distance down quite a lot and hear about the pain of something that's only a couple of minutes long. So what's it like coaching the 800?
So since I'm pretty new to it, I've really enjoyed it so far. I think it's really intriguing that it's a perfect blend of having some type of aerobic capacity, but you also have to be fast, and just the kind of different elements that come with it as opposed to the marathon or anything different that I'm kind of used to. But I've really enjoyed it so far, and I get impressed with our girls all the time about how quick they can turn over.
Awesome. One of the things that I find interesting to chat with high-level runners with is the concept of balance. Sarah tells me to ask about hunting. Talk to me about the things you do outside of running before we dive too far into the running side.
Yeah, I love hunting and fishing. I'm not very great at it, but love it. My dad and I try to get a buck or a spike or something every year. That's basically, and I eat on it throughout. And I think it's really beneficial to my running, having the venison. But also love dove hunting, though I use way too many shells for the amount of birds I get.
Cool. And did you do that growing up?
Yeah. We did some growing up, and then I got really into it after I graduated because I'm from Brackettville, which is a really small town, and moved to Dallas, which is not, and kind of missed all of those things. And so once I could come back home and visit, I got really into it and tried to take advantage of it as much as possible.
Cool. So what part of Texas is that?
So Southwest Texas, we're about 30 minutes from Mexico. Really small town. I think our population sign says 1,800 or something like that.
Oh wow. So I've been to Austin, but I've been told that going to Austin doesn't count for being in Texas. Is that true?
I don't think so. Austin's really cool. I mean, I love living in Dallas, but I think Austin's probably the coolest city that we've got. But
yeah,
it's very indicative of what the rest of the state is like for sure.
A couple years ago, I was down there with a few college friends, and it was March, and it was beautiful. And we got word that there was this barbecue festival just outside of town, and we stuck out like sore thumbs there because we were all wearing sneakers or athletic shoes and like shorts that you would see, I don't know, in Boston or DC or something like that. And it was very Texas, and we were very impressed by the food and beer choices that were there. But it was like, okay, 30 minutes right outside of town. It's like a whole. We didn't wear boots. I felt like I probably should have bought them before going to this. We showed up to this food festival, and it was $8 all you can eat. And I was like, I'll eat that in a meal. That's great. And then halfway through, we learned that it was all you can drink too. So it was like, I don't know what's going on here, but this is awesome.
Texans like their food, and they're pretty proud of pretty much really anything we do. We're pretty proud.
Definitely. So how do you use food as part of, you talked about venison for nutritional purposes. How do you use food to facilitate what you're doing on the roads?
Yeah, that's funny because I love to eat. I think that my dream would be to have a restaurant, to own a restaurant, just because I love the fellowship that comes with eating, and I love food, love cooking, don't love doing dishes, but love everything that kind of comes with it. I try really hard to have a really holistic diet. I try to make sure I'm getting all the fruits and vegetables. I eat the things that might not be so good if I know they're good for me, because I feel like it's better than, having to sit out for an injury or anything like that. But I also love things that aren't so healthy, and I don't really restrict myself too much from Chick-fil-A and fried chicken and everything that you wouldn't think that I'd need to be eating.
Yeah, I think that's important. I think that the balance of getting enough calories and giving yourself the freedom to eat whatever you want is important. And I work with a coach who in my training log, I'll often see eat fun foods today, after a long run, or like to eat, make sure you get a pizza or something like that. And I think that like building that relationship with food as something that's not only nourishing but social and like restaurants. I love restaurants because yes, I love eating, like you said, but it's also like the social aspect of it, and I'm missing that a ton right now.
Yeah, it's a really sad time to not have that.
Yeah, for sure. So what are you doing? We're chatting at the end of May 2020. How has your routine changed in the last few weeks and months?
Yeah, so I came home with my family because, like I said, we're pretty far out of touch with everything out here, and so I felt like it would be a safer place to be. In Dallas, I have 6 roommates, so it's a pretty crowded house. So I came home, and so that's been a big adjustment. And just being in Brackettville in general is a big adjustment. But it's been cool because I got to spend a lot of time with my family, and don't typically get to do that in a school year with, traveling. Either I'm traveling every weekend for our team, or I'm traveling for my personal races. Don't really have a lot of opportunity to come home. So it's been really cool. Also, my parents have been doing my laundry and cooking for me. I'm way too old for them to be doing that, but I'm not mad about it at all. But so that's been fun.
Hey, I'm I'm 29 and I've got the same setup for the last 6 weeks here at my own parents' house, and it's like
Yeah.
we'll be thinking of this in 50 years and remembering these times as weird as they are.
Yeah, but that's probably been the biggest adjustment is just being here. Though I have gotten a lot of soft surface here, which is nice. In Dallas, we don't have a ton. So getting to that, but running alone is not as fun. So that's kind of been a challenge to try to gate a little bit, but also a lot less Chick-fil-A. I haven't had any since the social distancing started, and that's a big deal for me. It's a really big deal.
So what are you doing to manage with the solo running?
So for a while I was listening to a lot of podcasts, and this one included, and listening to sermons or music or just stuff to keep my mind busy because I was pretty much on a reset and build back up from the trials. But then now it's getting too hot for me to carry my phone. I don't want to ruin it with my sweat. I'm a sweater. So the past few weeks I have just been trying to take it day by day and, know that the hopefully the end of this is near and I'll be able to have some running community soon enough.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's definitely a good time for podcasting and podcasters. What are some of the other ones you tune into?
So I listen to a lot of Timothy Keller, and I listen to the Village Church quite a bit. Trying to think of what else I've listened to. A lot of music. I listen to a lot of country music. Everyone makes fun of me because, like, is that your pump up music? Yeah, country can get anything.
I agree. I've got a fast country playlist, and that's my workout mix.
Awesome. Who's your favorite?
Big Kenny Chesney fan. Maybe not so much on the workout side of things, but there are a couple of gems that he's got that get you fired up.
Yeah, Get Along is so fun.
Yeah. So Sarah told me to ask about tacos. I'm a big taco fan as well. I hear you are too. Talk to me about let's talk about tacos.
Let's talk about it. So it's all about the tortilla for sure. If you go somewhere that has tacos and they're not homemade tortillas, it's not really a taco. People that make tacos on a wrap bread or wrap, whatever you call it, I get personally offended a little bit, but I think—
Isn't that a burrito?
I had breakfast tacos. I had 3 for breakfast this morning.
Oh, got it. Nice. Cool. So you've run some super fast times in the marathon. You've progressed to a place that many people will never get to. So I want to know where did that come from, and sort of like, did you think you'd ever be running in the 2:30s for the marathon?
So that I didn't think in college, I said there's no way I'd do a marathon. I didn't even run. I ran one 10K in college, and that was as a workout. But wasn't interested in anything long in college. And then I did a 5th year for cross and had some success there and was in really, really good shape. And so Coach Phillips, my coach, we planned to do a half marathon right after and qualified for the trials. And we're like, okay, you can't not go do the Olympic trials, qualified with the half. And so kind of started there. And I was like, this is okay. Like, this is kind of new territory. I like the roads. So that spring I did some longer races, just kind of really loved the community aspect of it and had a little bit of success. And so I kind of continued that, and just slowly we've pretty much cut off about 2 minutes every major marathon. Not every, but for the most part on the peak times, we've cut off about 2 minutes outside of Doha and the trials. But I've really liked it and just slowly inched down. I think, my goals are a little bit beyond that now. I would like to be sub 2:30, and I think I was in that shape for the trials. So yes, I have believed in myself the whole time, but it didn't exactly start out as, okay, I'm going to be a sub 2:45, or it was just kind of take one at a time and try to have success there and not think too far down the road.
Yeah, I think that's the secret, right? It's not about a specific tangible goal. It's about the process and getting better every day. I talked to Vanessa Fraser, a Bowerman Track Club athlete, and she said much of the same thing. Like she had a breakthrough year. She ran, 14 high in the 5K when her goal was just to break 15. And for her, it was not about putting a specific time on the clock, but rather I just want to get better every day and see what happens. And so it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like that's the approach that you're taking as well. Just like see how far you can go.
Yeah, and I think the most successful buildups that I've had are ones that I'm very present in and just enjoying it and keeping other people included and trying to help others out along the way. Those have been really the most successful when I don't get too far ahead. We've had seasons where we, say, okay, we're going to use this next couple months to get ready for this, but ultimately it's next year is our goal. And I didn't have a lot of success with that. Just, I don't operate really well that way. So just kind of like you said, just being present and really focused on what you're doing and the day-to-day process has been really helpful.
So what were the trials like?
Oh, it was awesome. It was so awesome. Atlanta did a remarkable job. There was times, and I know you've probably heard this before because I think every runner that has run it has said that, but it was deafening. I had to, in the first mile, I got pretty close to the front, and I wasn't trying to, get in the front per se. I was just trying to get out of traffic. I didn't want to be stressed and where I was. So I got up pretty close to the front really early, but I had to shut off my senses. They talk about all of the senses that you get when you're racing, and I had to shut off my hearing because it was so loud, and I could tell I was getting really excited about just where I was, and I knew I trained really hard, and I knew I was in really good shape. So Atlanta did a remarkable job. It was from the technical meeting to us unloading the plane or unloading or leaving the airport to the race itself, they were extremely organized and extremely friendly and helpful. So the race itself was awesome. It was a really cool experience.
Yeah, it was cool from a spectator standpoint too to see how it unfolded. You could see it depending on where you were, like 4 or 5 different times as the pack went by. So I think it was super cool. The part that I loved the most was that, like, the few days leading into it, there was so much going on. Did you find yourself at too many events? Were you at some of these panels, or were you there for business and you stayed in your room and sort of hunkered down?
I always try to find a balance because I get really excited about things, but I know that for the marathon, you don't want to be too, I guess stimulated is the best word. So
Yeah.
I try to find a balance of not being on my feet the whole time, but also enjoying the experience because, race day, anything can happen. And if you're too much of a hermit in the process, you miss out on a lot of really cool things a part of it. So I tried to, limit to, in the evenings, I'd go out to eat with my friends or do things like that, but also making sure that I was prioritizing racing because I did want to run well, and that was a goal.
So one of the things you mentioned, I want to jump back to a couple of the other guests I've had on this podcast, Tim Ritchie, Sarah Hall. They've talked about faith and how faith has played a role in their running. Sarah as well, she talked about it. She said, I've been given a gift. My gift is to run fast, and running fast is the way that I celebrate that connection. So I want to know about your connection with faith and how does that express itself with your running?
Yeah, I'm super excited you asked. I always want to talk about it, but I never know how much people want to hear about it. So
I've gotten a lot of feedback from people that say that they want to hear about it. So go right ahead.
Awesome. Yeah. It's super fun for me to talk about because, that's what we live for is our faith. And so, I think that it has been the epicenter of really everything I do. And I do a lot of running. So it just kind of happens to be the center of that. But, a lot of it is just the Lord, I feel like, has opened a lot of doors for me through running, and that's not what the running is for, but I've just been able to meet a lot of people and see a lot of his, I've been able to witness him quite a bit through running, and whether that be his strength in me when I finish a workout that I didn't think I can do. So there's that, but also having the faith of, okay, I'm doing this for a reason. What is that reason? And for me, the whole package of running kind of gives a outlet to have community and to be able to share my faith and to be able to meet other people of faith. Sarah Duffy is one, and she reached out to me a few weeks ago, I guess, and asked for prayer requests. So that's just such a cool and special thing that I wouldn't have without running. And, you can do that best when you're doing your best with whatever that gift is. And so it's something I also really enjoy. And like you said, Sarah mentioned that it's a gift, and getting to use that gift is a really cool opportunity.
Yeah, I love that. I'm not quite as religious, but I feel maybe, I guess the way I describe it is a connection, and it's a connection maybe to nature or to natural experience that happens sort of when we're in the depths of a race or in the middle of an adventure. And whether it's a connection to people who are no longer with us, I feel like I've had that experience while in the middle of these events, and maybe less so in everyday life. And I think it's super cool that like these are experiences that at least I can't explain, but I know that there's something there that's not it's not just me.
Yeah, and what's been really cool is with the faith aspect is we did our cross country team for DBU, cross country and track team did a mission trip to Peru last summer. Our DBU allows each athletics team to do a mission trip once every 4 years. And so running, because we're on a team, enabled us to do that. And when we went to Peru, it was really cool to see them having and treating their faith of Christianity really similar to how we do in a different avenue or in a different something that's not running, but had the same like feelings and experiences that we do. And so that spirituality is pretty linear, particularly with the Christian faith. And so that was really, really cool to get to see that and to get to witness that. And I think running brings you to meet people of all different faiths and all different perspectives and have a respect for that. And I think for me, even grown closer to what I believe and stronger in that.
Does that get stronger as the race goes on? Is it sort of like a crescendo? Is there a different form of connection you feel when you're racing versus doing a workout?
So I think a lot of it is, I think there's some times when it's during a race. A lot of times during the races, you're pretty focused in on racing, and you really in the zone for that. But where I think with racing particularly, it's kind of your incentive not to give up, or your why behind what you're doing and why you want to do it well and why not to just give up or take the easy route. But a lot of the time, for me particularly, it's either before or after the fact is where I feel a stronger connection. Or with workouts, there's been times I've been on a run and just been really overwhelmed, but with joy and gratefulness for God. And so having an experience with the Holy Spirit is what we'd call it. And so that's, I think, the strongest and the emphasis, the points of emphasis with faith. But typically it's after like, oh, wow, like I had these opportunities. I met this person and like I got to do these things. And oh, that was definitely his strength there for me to get to do that.
Very cool. It definitely makes sense. It's always fun to hear different perspectives from how other people experience same sport. You said, you get to meet people of different faiths, you get to meet people of different, from different parts of the country and whatnot. And I think everyone has a different approach, and it's always cool to hear. It's always cool to hear that. So I want to know a little bit more about, like, why do you do it? Why set these big goals? You mentioned, breaking 230. What is that? What does that mean to you? It's not a number. It's not, 229 looks great on the clock, but there's something behind it. What is it? What is it for you?
Yeah. I think that I've kind of always seen myself kind of as a little bit more of an underdog. And most people are familiar with David and Goliath and type of thing, but not so much that I'm David, but that God is able to kind of work through me. And like, if I can do these things, and if I can be a strong witness for Christ, then that is made evident. And so that's kind of my why. Because like, there's no reason that me particularly should do some of the things that I've gotten to do. Like and I don't believe any of the things that I've gotten to do are just out of my own doing. And so that's kind of why I do it, because I think I've been given these opportunities and to use them. And I want people to know that it's not because, I'm any different or any like more special or anything like that. I mean, I work hard, but I don't think that I don't underestimate other people working hard. I think a lot of people work really hard.
Yeah. So let's talk about the opportunity you had with the cross country world champs. First, can you tell us what that was and what was that like?
Yeah, that was super cool. Oh, I am such a fan of Robert and Weldon. I already was, but like after meeting them, they were awesome people. I know that the boards get a lot of hate, but they're not writing half the things on the boards. They're just a platform for people to vocalize their opinions.
You're talking about Let's Run?
Yeah, Let's Run particularly. And so Let's Run put out a thread that they would take somebody to the World Championships, because this year they had an unattached division. And so you just had to run, I think it was under 34 minutes for the 10K. I don't know. They had some type of standard. And so they were like, we're looking for more of a, Paul Chelimo or Drew Hunter. And I said, well, I wasn't one of those, that I wanted to, reach out. And so I like made a joke that I was a hunter of good competition, even though I wasn't Drew Hunter. And I just sent it because I actually saw the messages a few days ago. I sent to my coach. I was like, there's no way they're going to pick me. Like, there's no way they should pick me. Like, there's not a reason for them to pick me. But so I emailed them the joke, just kind of hoping to make them laugh in the process. And they reached back out. And so I was like, oh, wow. I had actually not, some of my previous plans had kind of fallen through. I'd gotten told no on entering a couple races. And so they were intrigued by that as well. And so, Weldon mentioned like his process of being a post-collegiate and not getting into meets. And so I think they had a little bit of a heart for my circumstance. And so they called me, I don't even know. I think I sent it in on Monday, and they called me Monday afternoon and said, do you have a passport? Do you have, can you go? And I was like, yeah. And they, it was funny because when he called, I think Robert called and said, hey, Kelsey. And I didn't even know who was on the phone. And they just started talking, and kind of realized through what he was saying who it was. But then they took me to Denmark to compete at the World Championships, and bought that ticket that night, left on Wednesday, raced on Saturday. Was not prepared by any means for it. I think I was actually just kind of building back up. And so my race wasn't super great. And part of that, I think, was I was a little bit excited and a little bit in awe of my competition. I didn't really believe in myself very much. I was just excited to be there.
And what was it like racing on a stage like that?
Well, I don't know if it's so much the stage itself was awesome. Like, it is really cool to, I think Katz designed the course, and being there with Let's Run, they had a lot of connections, and I got to meet a lot of people, and, just knowing that I was there and I didn't really deserve to be there was really, really special. Gave me, I think, a different look at everything, and I kind of was just like in awe the whole time. But after I finished, even though I ran awful, I ran slower than when I ran on some easy runs. But the course was difficult. It was, I just remember, and I mentioned this before too, but they, in the message board, when they asked who wanted to go, they said, who's tough enough to face the world's best? And then I remember on the second loop of that course, I was like, I'm not tough enough. I don't want this anymore because it was just such a brutal course. And then after that race, I remember listening to some of the Team USA interviews, and they were like, man, this is the toughest thing you're going to do all year. Like, for themselves, they were like, if we can do this, we're ready to go for the season. And I remember like, okay, if that's the toughest thing, this is great. And then I raced Doha, which was awful too. But so I don't listen to people when they say nothing gets tougher, because it always can be.
So what were some of the lessons you learned from international racing and international travel that you wish you knew before getting on the plane?
I think it was a little bit different for both, for Doha and for Denmark. I think Denmark, I should have just been a little more confident and know that, didn't necessarily deserve to be there, that I could compete and I'm a competitor. And I think I lost that a little bit in that race just because I knew I didn't deserve to be there. But I think that's the kind of lesson I learned from the first one. And really, you want to be prepared is nice. Preparation is really nice, but that's not something I could really control for that one. For Doha particularly, I think that, again, I was a little bit overexcited, but I had a really hard time with the time change and with the heat. And I thought that I was really well prepared because I had a great buildup. I was in really good shape. I'd trained really hard in the heat. And so I thought really that I should be as prepared as anyone. I mean, Dallas, it's heat index is 80, 90 degrees in the morning sometimes. And so I felt like I was really prepared for that. But I don't think my body responded well to the heat. And part of that, I think now, hindsight, we think it might be because I trained so much in the heat. I just don't have the capacity to put it out like when it comes time to race. So for that, I don't really know much that I could have changed for Doha specifically, but for international travel, trying to figure out what's best for, it was midnight there, 4 p.m. Texas time, and with I don't remember, 11-hour time difference or something. I don't remember what it was. Trying to figure out that kind of routine to get into. That's a really funky time to run no matter where you are, on what time zone you are.
Yeah. The other thing I was wondering, I'm told you're a big napper. Talk to me about recovery and napping.
Yeah, I am a grump when it's time for my nap. I pretty much hit a wall around. So we have practice at 6 a.m, 5:45 or 6. And once I'm done with practice and I have breakfast and take a shower, I hit a pretty hard wall right there. And I take, I have to take a nap then before I go back into work. And then here, since I've been home, it's been a little bit later, but I'm pretty regular with my naps. And if I don't get them, it's kind of my coffee. I don't drink a ton of coffee. I like coffee, but I don't really want to be too dependent upon it. So I love my naps, and I'm a new person afterwards.
What are some of the other things that you wish you knew when you started running? Maybe not as a 3-year-old, but as a high school runner that you know now.
As a high school runner, I think, and really probably in college and sometimes now still, but I do think I'm better at it. Not being so wrapped up in every day. I think really in high school, I ran hard every day. And a lot of college, I ran way too hard. And still, I find myself running too hard sometimes. But in high school, I didn't run a ton of mileage. And so I wish I would have listened to my mom and run a little more and just not run as hard. I used to get in fights with my mom in high school because she'd be like, Kelsey, you probably need to go run a little bit longer of a run than 2 miles, which is the longest we really went in practice. Our over distance day in practice was 2.5, which is funny because our race was 2. So she'd try to get me to go to a 4 or 5 mile run on Saturdays. And I remember being so mad at her, like she was being so mean. And now I'm like, man, she was right. Like I should have been, a little more receptive to that. And so I guess listening to my mom, that would be some good advice for me in high school in general.
I think that's just good advice in general. Always listen to mom.
Yeah, my parents are right about a lot more than I realized.
I'm noticing the same thing. I think it's a trend.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks so much for jumping on today. And we'll be rooting for you.
Well, thank you, Jonathan. I appreciate your time.
For sure.
That's it for today's episode. Like many long runs, it's sad when it has to end. I hope you join in next week on For the Long Run. And in the meantime, happy trails. If you've enjoyed this episode, it would mean a lot to me if you shared it so that others can find it and enjoy it too.